thank you for your permission on that. I got back at 2 a.m. from Austin, and I was just in that mood to not put a suit on, if that's okay, and come here and spend some time with you guys. So, when we talk to people all the time, I don't know if I know everybody here. Do I need to introduce myself? I'm Seth Campbell. I'm the operating principal of this office. So I lead the ownership group and glad in building this office. So excited to have you all here. I'm also regional director for Keller Williams Realty for this region. And I own a mega team, a real estate team, just to see all the facets of the business. And our mega team is big. It's in 12 different locations around the country. We're into that expansion thing. I think we're at about a little bit over $2 million in GCI already for the year. Our goal is to be at $5 million by the end of the year. So we're kind of on pace for that and having a lot of fun in that. It's an exciting time. So when we talk to people who are successful, or people when we talk to people in general who then start to talk about their goals and their pursuit of their goals, and they fundamentally say, like, when we ask them the question, like, what is the biggest challenge you have in hitting your goals? What do you suppose the number one thing people say is when we poll them? Number one issue I have is time management. Time management. So when you hear time management, like, what does that mean to you? Talk to me just real quick about what is time management for you. Like, what do you think of when you hear that phrase, time management? Yeah.
For me, when I look at time management, I think it's self-management, because time is regular. It's always the same. So 60 seconds is 60 seconds. It's always about me self-management.
Love that. Love that. Good. Any other thoughts on that? What would you add to that? Yeah.
Focusing on the priorities first.
Okay, good. I like that. That's going to come up today.
Mine's just balancing my work life and my family life.
Yes.
Which is probably good priorities also.
Yeah, so balancing the work life and the family life. Yeah, that's a big struggle.
Blocking time for specific functions so you can really do them to get it done.
Blocking time. Yeah, for specific things. Yeah.
Avoiding procrastination and doing it right then and there.
Avoiding procrastination, doing it right then and there when you think of it. Good.
Because I always put it off and say, oh, I'll just do it later. And later just comes too soon.
Yeah, I'll just do it later. I'll just do it later. And then later doesn't always come, right? Or something else fills in later. Good. It's funny, whenever I think of time management, I actually believe that phrase itself is a lie. You know, it's a phrase that we use a lot that's not even real. You can't. It's an oxymoron. You actually can't manage time if you think about it, because we, like you said, we don't actually control time. Time is the same for all of us, right? We all have 24 hours a day. So if you ever thought about, like, what's the difference? These are the conversations I have with myself, and you guys can just listen to it. Is like, all right, Seth, like, what's the difference between you and, say, Bill Gates, you know, or you and Warren Buffett, the richest man in the world? They have 24 hours a day. You have 24 hours a day. What's the difference? Neither one of them, you know, grew up real wealthy or came from a background of that. You know, neither did you. Like, what's the difference? Why are they where they're at versus where you're at? And it's not that it's a competition thing. It's just a perspective thing, right? I've got no judgment on either side. It's a perspective thing. So if you think about that, what's the only difference between what they managed to achieve in the same 24 hours that we managed to achieve, right? Because it's not right for us to compare ourselves. Well, they're already there, so then they already have all of that stuff. They have so much help. They have so many employees. They were at an employee of one, right? Both of them. Same as all of us. So what's the difference?
They get more done with their time, but using their resources.
Yeah, so they get more done. That's clear. They get more done with their time than maybe some of us. What else?
They have an accomplished goal for that day.
Yeah, so they probably accomplished a goal for that day. Some of us do too. What's the difference?
Manage their time better.
Yeah, so how about this? Is it possible that they just make a different decision with their minute? And that minute that just passed right there, and the next minute that just passed right there, right? So in other words, they have the same amount of minutes, right? You all agree with that, and yet it's a choice, right? They've just chosen to apply their minute towards something else. So they've chosen to apply their minute towards developing a technology, or they've chosen their Warren Buffett chooses to devote a certain amount of minutes every single day towards reading. Like he obsesses over reading and understanding businesses, understanding cycles. Like, and it's just a choice, right? It's not like, somebody gives them a book and forces them. It's just a choice. So I think when the biggest piece of advice, the foundation of any conversation we have on time management, being effective with time, we have to have this realization that it's really choice management, not time management. It's really decision making, not time. We don't control the time. But what we do control is what we do in that moment, right? You all are in control of what you're going to do for the next 30, 60 minutes, right? And you've made a choice to be here. Now, whether that ends up being a good choice or not, I don't know. But, it's like, that's what you always got to think about. So, and there's choices, whether you would label good or bad. Like, I don't like using the word good or bad on some things like that. But how would you determine if we wanted to label like good choice, good decision, bad decision? Use those words. What would cause you to label something a good decision or a bad decision? A good choice or bad choice?
End result.
End result?
Income producing?
Income producing, all right. How about this? Like, what if it was about, marriage or something like that? It didn't have to do with money. What's good choice, bad choice?
Happiness.
Getting married or not getting married.
Yeah. Get married. Yeah, I like to look at it is in relation to the goal, right? So in other words, like, you could choose to take this whole month off. And we could say, like, oh, is that a good choice or bad choice? Half of us say that's a bad decision because you're going to miss some productivity. The other half might say that's a great decision because you're going to have this great quality family time. Which one is it? It depends on the person's goal. Right? So in other words, like, bring yourself to a realization that if we're talking about choice management, and we're talking about like choice management down to the minute, that should be in relation to what we want. So in other words, I've got no judgment. Sometimes people say my goal is, I've been in classrooms where people say like, hey, my goal in real estate is I want to sell $2 million this year. And then somebody in the room is like, oh, you're thinking too small. You're thinking, no, that's their choice. Now, there's nothing wrong with their decision. I want to be single. I want to be married. I want to have kids. I don't want to have kids. Like, how could you ever say either one of those is good or bad? No, it's their choice, so it's what they want. Now, in the moment, what do they choose with their minutes, right? So if my choice is I want to be married, my goal is I want to be married, and then in my minutes with my time, I never talk to anybody that could ever become a potential spouse, then you could say, well, bad decision, bad choice, right? Does that make sense? So all of that's in relation to what somebody really wants. So then if it's going to be about that, what do you need to have real clarity on? What do you really want? What are your goals? And in the absence of that clarity, how could you ever make a choice in this minute that moves you towards that or away from that? So all decisions with our minutes are either, are they moving us towards our goals or are they moving us away from our goals? Like, one of my goals is to have a great relationship with my wife, and in the next 5 minutes I make a decision to fight and argue with her and be right, win this battle. Like, that could be a decision that leads me away from that goal, right? You see that? I just choose to make a different choice with those minutes. So how it works. Now, if I haven't committed or decided to have a great relationship, then, hey, that choice is going to get me somewhere. And, if I don't know where I'm going, then life will lead me, right, instead of me leading it, and that's just kind of how it works. So is that a helpful framework right there for the rest of our class? If we can get there, then we'll be able to unlock a lot of possibilities inside of this thing. So what we really want to accomplish in this quick lunch and learn, remember they do these kind of quick lunch and learns in this, is these three things. These are goals for today, is to utilize the principles of control, setting goals with the 411. That's a tool that we'll walk through that Gary Keller invented, that a lot of successful people, I personally use it too, and then how to maximize that productivity once you're inside of that. So let's first talk about principles of control. Prime time. Prime time. What is prime time? We all fundamentally have a time of the day when we're at our peak performance, our peak energy, right? When do you suppose that is for 99.9% of human beings? Yeah, in the morning. Why is that? Yeah, okay, you're rested. Your energy's up, like coffee.
Things haven't gotten in your way yet?
Yeah, things haven't gotten in the way yet, right? All the distractions haven't hit you yet, unless you've opened the phone or start reading email, but right? Good, yeah, that's usually your prime time. The book, The One Thing, by Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, a great book. If you haven't read it, it would be the perfect book to read on this topic. That book has a great analogy in there, right? Because essentially you come to find out that you really control the decisions you make per minute, and you can kind of work to control your energy, right? Those are the two things you really can work to manipulate and make good decisions on that make you more productive, right? Those are the two things you can really focus on to increase your productivity. It's got this great analogy in the book. Does anybody remember it about the cell phone? It's talking about your energy management. So what he says is like, essentially, think of your body like your cell phone, right? And you charge it up overnight, right? Everybody charges their phone overnight. You wake up, it's at 100%. And then as soon as you turn it on and start using it, what happens? 99, 98, 97. And now if you use it for something that's real intensive, like what would be something that really burns your battery on a cell phone? Reading a book. What else? What else would really kill your battery? Music, games, movies, right? That type of stuff, right? It'll kill your energy. By lunchtime you might be down to 20%. Whereas if you just occasionally read something or occasionally opened something, you might be 85% by lunchtime, right? Does that make sense? So your body's the same way. Your body's the same way. So when you wake up, you're at 100%. Now, what you want to really understand is that there are time zappers, just like movies and games, that kill your battery. Not saying there's anything wrong with these things. It's fun to watch movies. It's fun to listen to music. But they kill your battery, right? So if you needed your battery life, so say you were, like I was a few weeks ago, like out on a mountain with nowhere to plug a phone into, so this thing was like useless. But say so I knew I wasn't going to recharge my battery today. Like you knew you couldn't charge your phone today. What decisions would you make with your morning time? Would you skip the music that day?
Yes.
Skip the right.
Yes, use it sensibly.
Preserve it.
Yeah, you would definitely use it for what you absolutely need it for first. So say you had this whole email that you need to get done, like you would go do that first, wouldn't you?
The most important.
There you go. So here we are. Now we're talking about like how we want to live our lives with our goals, right? You would use your most important thing first. The mistake we make sometimes is we have this belief that we can always just replug in. But you don't operate the same way. Like you don't have a replug in that's real instant like a charger for a phone. It is once you start using your stuff today, like your replug in may not be until you go to bed tonight. So you got to start thinking about your body and your energy like you do your cell phone. Like, all right, it's ticking down. Like, I'll save the music till later till I get all my most important stuff done. Then I'll use it because I got this extra battery life, right? Then I can have fun. Then I can do those cool things and stuff at the beginning. Like, I'm not even taking a chance that my battery's going to die and I never got that email out. That type of deal. So that's prime time. Is understanding that there is a time in the day where you are at the highest battery life, and utilizing that snapshot of time, those couple of hours, to do the things that matter the most, because then you'll be better at it. Right? Your ability, I could prove it to you through scientific research, that your ability to handle an objection or to do a script will be better before 11 a.m. than it is after 1 p.m. You'll actually be better at it. Your brain works faster. You understand where they're going. You'll pause. You'll ask a better question. You'll do a pattern interrupt. You'll handle the objection. You won't stutter. You won't get caught off guard. You'll actually perform better while you're closer to 100% than you will later. And the funny part is, man, you might be down to 0 every day by lunch. Like, it's not like these batteries on phones are usually a lot better than we are. They're more efficient. Like, for a lot of us, like me personally, it is hard. Like, I had to intentionally have a certain meal right before this class because I don't know about you, but I'm actually not that good after 1 o'clock. I'm actually not that good. So, and I used to be upset about that. Now I think of it as a blessing because then it's forced me to really be good about the morning time. especially because my goals are huge. There's a lot I've got to get done before noon. I know I'm not as good after noon. We control my schedule. So that's your prime time. It's just understanding, like, you've got that time block is the time to do everything you're supposed to do. And then the 80-20 principle. What's the 80-20 principle? What's the 80-20 principle? Have you ever heard of that? It's also called the Pareto principle. Who can explain what that is? Just in general, and I'll go deeper with you.
20% of your activity equals 80% of your results.
Right. 20% of your activity equals 80% of result. It's a truth. It's a truth, by the way, in all aspects of life. The way it started is there was an economist, an Italian economist back in the 1800s named Pareto, and he started analyzing wealth in Italy. And he found out that 80% of the country's wealth was held by 20% of the people. 80% of the land was owned by only 20% of the population. Everybody else were renters. And then he just started looking at all these different things, and it became this like pattern in the world amongst almost everything that's out there. And we call it the 80-20 principle. I remember before real estate, I worked at McDonald's, regional person at McDonald's. We did study after study after study, as you can imagine they would, a company that big, that intentional, on what the menu boards needed to look like to cause people to spend more, you know, when you walk into the restaurant. And does anybody remember, like, when you were a real little kid, what the menu boards looked like? It was just a lot of writing. Does anybody remember that? They have those little strips in there. And then what do they look like now? Pictures. We found out that if the menu boards need to be magically 80% pictures, 20% writing. And that was the perfect formula where people would spend the most money. The 80-20 rule shows up again. In real estate, guess who sells the most houses? The top 20%. In this office, guess who sells the most houses? Top 20%. Every time. Now, sometimes that 80-20 principle doesn't work out exactly. It actually could be, 16, 84, but it's usually somewhere around there. In some industries, in some aspects, it might be even 95-5. But the point is that in all things, a small group or a small set of activities actually generates a disproportionate amount of results. So when you look at what it takes for you to generate a lead, of 100 things you do, it's probably like 2 or 3 things that actually make the biggest difference, right? And you want to understand that for everything. When I look is it okay if I use examples of like personal life too? Because I figure you guys get a lot of real estate stuff. I want to do both with you, so you understand that everything we teach here actually helps you in your personal life. So even if I look at like this, like I mentioned earlier, like relationship with my wife or my marriage, turns out that of all the things I could do that would help me have a deeper relationship with her, there's only 2 or 3 things that really matter to her, or make the biggest difference. Not 100%, but it turns out with her, like I would plan these big elaborate date nights and stuff like that. And I figure, like, I read that in a book somewhere, so it must work perfectly. But for her, it's like she would appreciate. She actually values like 10 minutes of just like talking to her with no distraction, over some big like trip. So the key is like, and that's a relief for me because it's less time. It's less money. We still do the other stuff, but understand like it's only like something like that makes the biggest difference. So now if I'm down to a point of like, okay, what's a good choice, bad choice that leads me closer to a goal or further away from a goal, and I've got this 10-minute block, what will I choose to do with it? See how that works? And that's what happens. So when you focus on the 80-20 principle and you really understand that at a deep level, what you end up with is more money and more time and more organization. So if you struggle with balance, like I want to have more money and more minutes and more time with my family, and you're struggling with that, here's your opportunity is to get better here. Is because just think about that. Like just like the wife example, right? Don't I end up with more money in that story? Don't I end up with more time in that story? And I end up with a better relationship in that story. And how did I find that out, though?
Trial and error.
Trial and error. Experiment. Like, you can look at my goal. I can go back and show you my 4-1, which I showed that tool years ago, and you'll see me like experimenting with different things just to find the one that had the biggest impact. And I've got to get feedback from her. You know, it's it does feel a little like a laboratory probably sometimes in my house, but like, you know, scale 1 to 10 after this experience. And like using assessments, 5 love languages, stuff like that, to really like drill in and to find out what that is. So, why don't more people live by the 80-20 principle? It's counterintuitive. It doesn't feel right. Many times we're trained that it's a matter of how much time we put into something, or we read the book and date night worked for that author, but it's not a big deal for my wife, right? So sometimes it's counterintuitive that less can mean more. If I just focus on this. And I would add to that sometimes that thing is scary, right? Or we've labeled it as difficult, like lead generation, like door knocking, like cold calling, whatever that might be. We've got a fear wrapped around that, so we go to the next best thing or the next best thing after that, right? So we listed them in order of like which one is most effective, and we say, well, the first 4 are like really uncomfortable. At number 5, I'm more comfortable with that. What is that going to mean for our results?
Less.
It could be a lot less, right? So if 5% controls 95% of the income, and then I go outside of that 5%, what am I fighting over? How much income? I'll say it again. So if 5, say those top 5, like the example I gave you, right, is what works best in lead generation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The top 10 ways to lead generate, right? Most effective. And I said like, well, these first 5 are pretty uncomfortable, but number 6, I love that one. Right? Number 6, I love it. I'm comfortable with that one. I'll do that one. But then the 80-20 principle shows us that those first 5, this is 5%, 95% of the dollar generated in real estate, the first 5 are inside of this, and I choose number 6. Or I'm sorry, I got it backwards. The first 5 control 95% of the money, and number 6, how much money am I fighting over?
5%.
Yeah, and there we go. And usually our goals are bigger than that. So that's the other big reason why I've observed that we sometimes struggle with the 80-20 principle is, and because it's in the top 10, we say it's a priority. But understand, by the way, that it could be right here, could be the one. And we choose number 3. Well, it's in the top 3, so it must generate big results. Not based on the law of the universe. You may have just gone outside and you're fighting over the 5% of the pie that's left, the 10% of the pie that's left, with like 100,000 other real estate agents, by the way, fighting over that much. While there's a very small group that just got over it and is fighting over a lot more money. Can you see now how the money is disproportionately distributed? Because the other one just, and believe me, do you think the top agents don't have a fear or a limited belief wrapped around these? Of course they do. Made a different decision, a different choice with those minutes. Back to the very first thing we talked about. What all pause you having now? Like, let's just pause because you got to get quiet on me. Which means you're going internal. Hopefully you're thinking about it or you're looking in the mirror. What lost you? I just want to make sure we're together.
What has to associate the 1 and 2 as far as effort would be to be associated in?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be the number of people that think of your name first or second place when they think about buying, selling, or investing. How you do that to the level of aggression, you do that to the quantity of people. Then it's a quantity game. So if I need that number to be 10,000, how do I make sure it's 10,000? It's probably going to involve a lot of contact, by phone or by foot. That's why they end up winning. Or you can market your way there. That's going to take a lot. You can have 100,000 people, but to get 10,000 out of marketing, you might spend a lot of money. Yeah, what's going through your head? Yeah.
Well, but I have never been like a morning person, and I've noticed that. Well, like even when I interviewed, I was talking to Mel, and I was telling her that before I came here, I was always busy, but not productive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because, for the most part, I really didn't get my energy until about noon. So now when I see this, it helps me to understand why, just slowly but surely I've been learning how to put things in perspective, and now I understand how, you have more energy typically in the morning, but I think that my days went so long that I would be up so late. And then I would get my day started later. And by me working for myself, it really didn't matter before. I would just set my appointments late,
There you go.
So this makes sense.
Good.
Yeah.
So you learned that your morning actually begins at nighttime. The night before. Right? That's what happens is when you become obsessed with 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., whatever your number is, that, oh wow, that actually starts at nighttime. The night before.
Are you actually reestablishing your goals every day as you go through that?
Well, think about it. Aren't you in real estate, right? You
Yeah.
wake up every day. You wake up unemployed every day.
Right.
And your goal is like 2 people better hire me today, or 1 person better hire, whatever your goals are, 12 people better hire me today, or I'm in trouble, right? Depends on your goals. So that's it. So every day you wake up that way. And thank you for sharing that. Is when because your energy is scientifically proven to be higher in the morning. Guess who else's energy is higher? Yeah, the clients, the people you contact, the prospects. And when people's energy is higher, based on science, are they more apt to say yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, what do you do? Like, think about this: is when do you eat the best? The best food, the cleanest.
Breakfast.
Yeah, which you can eat. Breakfast is pretty easy to nail, right? Most of us aren't doing pizza and everything for breakfast, right? But when your energy is drained or you had a rough day, right? Well, no, it's all right on certain times. But when your energy's the lowest, right? Because you're really tired or you're really cranky, what do you reach for? Yeah, cookies, pizza, whatever. And that is about your energy. Like, it is proven. It's proven in the one thing. They showed people's default. When your energy's down, when your battery's down to like 10%, 20%, you go towards your default. You actually don't put conscious effort into your decision because you don't have enough energy even to like override your will power. And you go to default. And guess what most of our default is? It's like, bad food, bad decisions. Yeah, all kinds of, you can go where you want to go with that. All kinds of stuff, right? So the funny part, so it's important to understand it applies to all aspects of your life, like we talked about. So you want to manage your energy and make good choices inside that. So the MEG-H is 20%. Back to your question, is like, okay, what's my 20%? I'm ready to obsess over my 20%, ready to put it in my prime time, not in my afternoon. What's my 20%? The 3 L's of real estate, as defined in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, our foundational guidebook on how to build a great real estate business. It's leads, then listings, then leverage. The 3 L's of real estate. By the way, it's not going to change. This isn't going to change. We're all in this business. I'm in this business. You're in this business. The 3 L's of real estate. This is not going to change in our lifetime. This is it. It's always going to be about leads, listings, and leverage. So generating enough leads to get listings, and when I do that, then eventually I will start to need leverage. So first of all, let's talk about this 1 second just so we're all on the same page. How come we don't have buyers up there? How come it's not generating enough leads to get buyers? There's a reason for that. What?
Spend more time with the buyer.
Yeah, right. It's not the best use of your time.
Right.
So we can prove that. So in other words, if you've got, how many buyers can you work with alone in a month?
15 to 20.
Like that are really out there searching every day, like hardcore, like looking at houses, full time. I'm buying this month. You've got to show me houses. How many of those can you work with? I mean, it's not a perfect number. There's no right or wrong answer. What do you think? What's the range?
8 to 5 to 7.
Yeah, 5 to 7, 8 to 9. It's usually around there we see. Some people go a little higher, some people go a little less. Now, how many months in a row can you do that? Like before you're ready to stab yourself. Like it's gonna burn you out, right? Now, let me ask you, like, how many listings could you, as an agent, have on MLS right now for sale?
Any amount.
Yeah, I mean, a lot, right? I've seen people, I saw a sole agent with 200 listings once,
But-
active.
Doesn't that go back to you having leverage when you have listings? Because I heard a long time ago it said that when you have buyers, you're competing against 14,000 agents. When you have listings, you have 14,000 agents working for you.
There you go, perfect mindset, thank you for that. That's why we obsess over listing, right? Better use of time, it's more leverage. You have freedom, right? Oh, these agents are out there selling your listing instead of you walking around. Like, I heard, I was in a class once, and Regional Director Keller Williams said something that was brilliant, it made so much sense. She's like, imagine it's a shoe store. Imagine like listings are like a shoe store, right? And those are the shoes. Would you rather be the shoe store with all kinds of shoes on the shelves and all these buyers come in and pick which one they want? Or would you rather be the person that goes out around town saying, hey, do you want to buy shoes? Like, let me walk you around to a bunch of stores and help you find your shoes. And I was like, that's it right there, like, which is very useful. So that's why we obsess over generating leads for listings, not buyers, because what also gets produced when you have a bunch of listings anyway? Buyers, right? They come to you anyway. So you're going to be able to get those, you can get signed calls, you can get internet leads, so you can convert those. Whoever has the most listings ends up getting the most signed calls and everything. Nowadays, there's people that can get more buyer leads from the internet, but people with the most listings tend to have the most buyer leads anyway. Leads that are ready now, signed calls, things like that. And then what happens is, when you do that well, you'll have so many listings and you'll be generating so many buyer leads and signed calls that you must then go get leverage. What does leverage look like in our business? Let's just kind of define that word real quick. It's a couple of different things, but what does it mean? Admin, yeah, so people leverage.
Transaction coordinator or whatever.
Yeah, transaction coordinators, exactly. What else is leverage in our business? I'm glad y'all went to the who first, but there's other things that make your business more efficient too. Systems, tools, software, yeah, routines, schedules, things like that. Those are leverage too, right? Because even if you have great people at some level, like if things aren't running smoothly, you might need a different system, right? You always want to have big systems. So this is our business. So our 20% is inside of that. That's what makes 80% of your money. Everything else is outside of it. Everything else you're choosing something further down the list and you're fighting over the other. It's probably 95% of your money comes from this screen right here. And any other thing you do with your minutes, if it's not generating lead for listing and it's not finding leverage, you're fighting over the 5% of cash that's out there. That's it. With about 10,000 other people. Just in this area. The other big principle about control that you really want to understand is another one of our fundamental models called E to P. It's moving from E to P. And so I'll kind of teach this here real quick. You'll see the E here and the P here. So it's actually moving from entrepreneurial style to a purposeful style. So you want to have a breakthrough. All of us have an entrepreneurial style. And what we mean by that, real easy way to put it, is doing what comes naturally. So we all have this style of what comes naturally. In the world of how to generate leads for listings, I've got a style that comes naturally, right? It might be, I want to go on Facebook. I want to do that, right? That could be what comes naturally, right? That could be my number 6 on here that feels good.